Hi, welcome to the Revolutionaries. I'm Jeff Damaris,
I'm Tina Duryea.
And I'm Shannon Riley.
and welcome to our episode for this week. We're actually going to do a little bit of a round robin sort of flavor today. So each of us is going to have a particular topic that we want to talk about for each of the three segments, and we're going to go in and talk about it. Now, these topics can be loosely related, but it's really just stuff that kind of we have on our mind and we want to just kind of go over, and we're going to start with Tina.
Hi, everyone. So I was okay. We're gonna edit that little bit out.
No, it was good.
No, I was expecting about the dude shirt because you said you were gonna do something about the dude shirt. And
the dude shirt. Well, we'll keep it in here. Okay, so listen. So here's my dude shirt. So it says the dude here, okay? Now, this was completely just a coincidence because I usually wear a little bit nicer shirt for this, but I forgot to bring it, and so it has the dude. Now, it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm the only guy of the three people on here. This is the Big Lebowski, see? So that's what that's about. But hey,
for the young whippersnappers
that was a
watching.
movie from 1997. Okay, a lot for anybody who wasn't around then. 1997 was in the 20th century, and which was a cool, kind of a nice time if you overlook the wars and the threat of nuclear annihilation and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
there we go. All right. Anyway, so back to you, Tina.
On to my topic, which is about dudes to a certain extent, particularly one. Although I know that dude is in your context being used as a positive, I'm talking about dudes in the generic sense of men controlling women's bodies. And if you've been paying attention to the Senate this week, which I hope everybody's been paying attention to the Senate, because the Senate's up to some no good, very bad things. And one of the things that they're up to is confirming Donald Trump's choice of Todd Blanche to be the next attorney general. Now, anybody who's paid any attention to Todd Blanche already knows the guy's a no good, very bad person. But one of the things that has come up in the past maybe 24 hours is that it has been released that he was on a call with some of his supporters, and I think also the president's support, saying that, once he is confirmed as attorney general, he's going to be working with the president, with the administration, with the various cabinets, with the Supreme Court to make sure that Dodd, the decision to ban abortion or allow abortion bans nationwide, is the law of the land. They're going to undo, the ability of telehealth prescriptions of misoprostol. Connecticut has been on the forefront leading the charge in terms of protecting our healthcare providers if they want to prescribe misoprostol to women in red states. They're going to shut all that down. They're telling us what they're going to do, just like they did in Project 2025, just like they fucking did in 2016 for anybody who is listening. And so it's sort of like, and I feel like the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I feel like the Trump game plan is to just bombard us with all of this chaos and horribleness. And the canary in the coal mine for all of this was abortion. And I felt like that was the first thing. And when they got away with getting rid of, Roe, then they decided they were going to go on to everything else because they're like, if we can get rid of this, we can do anything. And so the fact that it's kind of been put in the back burner, it's not a major topic of conversation in political discourse. And obviously we have to win the midterms if we're going to do anything about any of these topics. But I just horrified at the thought that we're this close to confirming an attorney general whose mission is to make it so women cannot get health care. And I know we live in a blue state, so I think that there's also a lot of complacency here in Connecticut. I think there's a lot of complacency in a lot of blue states. And I think I read a statistic that girls in red states have seen a spike in suicide. Boys have not. Girls have seen a spike in suicide that they're linking to the passing of these laws. And it's not even that the girls need to have an abortion. I think the message we are sending girls and women and anybody with a uterus, quite frankly, anyone with a uterus in this country right now is being sent a very strong message that we are not important and that we are actually here for just the control of the state. And it's very discouraging. I think that's why you see the spike in suicide of these young girls, is because, like, can you imagine being 16 years old and seeing your government telling you that they're going to roll back your rights, and they're getting away with it, and no one's coming to save you. No one. It, I know I'm kind of going all over the place because this is something I'm so upset about. And then you think about, like, poor women in Afghanistan who went from having fairly decent rights to now they're in, full burqas, being sold off at 13
Yep.
years old to old men just to pump out babies, and people like say, oh, that'll never happen here, but we're already rolling back at an incredible rate women's reproductive rights, and it's not really that far. I mean, we know that they control women by controlling our bodies, and one of the best ways to control a woman's body is to make sure that if she gets pregnant, she can't undo that unless
Undo it. Yeah.
undo it. And so, yeah. So me finding out that Todd Blanche is running around telling right-wing Republicans that they're really going to do this nationwide, it's enraging. And it should be enraging to everybody.
It should be because I think what's really difficult for a lot of conservatives to understand is that like what you said, like abortion is healthcare. It's not actually just abortion. It is about the aftercare if you have a miscarriage who that cannot, pass. It also probably has to do with, people who have like endometriosis or stuff like that, like where like they have to go in and, do some maintenance. I'm like, I literally was at like my OBGYN this week, and we were talking about like I'm gonna have an endometrial ablation, and it was like the question, and I'm 45, have 4 kids. She goes, "Are you done having children?" And I was like, "Fuck yes, I am. Like I got 4 of them. I've done my goddamn part. Like no more." Like, but like
at least you didn't make your husband come in and sign a permission slip.
This is true. He did not sign he didn't have to sign a permission slip, which, there's just, oh God. I don't.
Here's what I don't understand. I hear everything you guys are saying, and I agree with it 100%. It's disgusting. The whole matter is disgusting. I don't understand how we can treat women not just so badly, but that even the precedent exists that women have certain rights in some states and don't have those rights in other states. And those states can even border each other. So if you live in one town or one street over from a state border, you might have certain fundamental rights, and then down the street, you don't. It's just idiotic beyond words. And obviously, it's not really about women's health. That's not why they're doing this. They're not doing this for any reason other than control. That's the whole purpose of this whole stupid exercise for them.
We're going to Gilead.
Yeah. And there's a reason why, for example, what you were just mentioning, why, The Handmaid's Tale is so impactful is because there's plausibility to it. And it's easy to see the plausibility because we're experiencing it. We're seeing the seeds of such a thing planted. And as a guy, it makes me sick. I mean, it makes me sick. It's just, that's not how this should be going.
You've got the situation in Texas where they have flock cameras tracking women to see if they leak.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Or that they'll come punish you for going to another state, to have this done, like some kind of fugitive slave act that they've adopted for this sort of thing. It's absolutely infuriating.
I was going to say, the flock cameras, apparently there's been more arrests of police officers using them to stalk women than actually, catching the reason that we have them. I don't know how we've gotten to a place where we are so comfortable with the government knowing everything about us. Even if you're talking about a period tracking app.
Don't use those.
Do not use those.
Use a calendar.
They will look at that data and they will use it against you. If you miss a period, they're going to accuse you of having an abortion. Do not use them. Go old school, use the paper, burn it at the end of the month. We're going back to being witches, girls. That's
the right for, so it's a fundamental right. Okay. for a person to have sovereignty over their body, and that right was
Women.
established.
No.
Well, I'm gonna go. You'll
But
see
women
where
These
I'm
are
are
going.
caveats.
people.
Yeah.
Women are well, men have sovereignty over their body, but women are not full people, so we don't
Well,
get
no,
sovereignty.
that's how it's being turned into now, but that's not how it's supposed to be. That's not
No,
how.
it
In
shouldn't
fact, that's
be.
not what Roe
But
had
that's
determined. Roe had determined that there was sovereignty, and
Actually,
Dobbs
no,
determined that it wasn't.
it wasn't Roe that did sovereignty. It was Griswold v. Connecticut, right?
Oh yes, yep,
That's the
yep.
foundation of Roe. Roe was actually a right to privacy with your doctor, I
Right.
believe.
Yes, and
Yeah.
when Griswold was right.
Yeah.
That's right. What?
And they're going after Griswold too. That's why I brought it up. Sorry.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
people will. I've seen this. This case was made, especially 5-6 years ago, about the vaccination scenario with COVID. It says, hey, they tried to turn the abortion argument around. Look, for an important point to be made on this, and the differences between that is that a pregnancy is not a contagious disease, okay, that can harm other human beings. Okay, so there is a completely different context with your personal bodily sovereignty when it comes to a disease that can kill other people. All right, that should be plainly obvious that there are two very different principles at work there. But and it's men, it's men that are saying you don't have this right. It was men in the Supreme Court. I mean, Amy Coney Barrett notwithstanding, because that's a whole, her situation is she's just going to parrot whatever male talking points is. She's a defender of the patriarchy after all. The rest is just a bunch of men saying, well, you don't have this right. You don't have this right. And I may be a guy, but I have a wife, I have a daughter, I have a mother, I have friends who are women, I have family members that are not my wife, mother, or daughter that are women, and to see rights rolled back, and this is just the first point, and this is not where it's going to stop.
No, because
you
they're going to
already
go
hear
after
people.
disability rights too.
I mean,
because,
you
like,
already
this
hear
is
them talking about going after the 19th Amendment. I mean, these are not
Yeah.
like these are the sort of canaries in the coal mine. That's what they're trying to determine. That's what they're
Yep.
they're looking to see. How far can we push this so we can go back to what it was like in the good old days when only wealthy landowner white males could vote. That's where they want to go. A lot of them, that's where they want to go. And it just I know I speak for a lot of men who agree with what both of you are saying, that this is just simply cannot stand. We can't have this happening.
I want to also, before we move off of this subject, talk about the fact that we don't hear enough about the women who are either dying or on the verge of dying or being irreparably damaged by the fact that Dodd happened. Wasn't it 4 years ago now, right? Dodd happened. And because I remember it was the year my mom died. And, because the reporting actually lags behind real-time things, we're only starting to see, actual data about how this is, literally killing women and mutilating them. And all of the other stuff is important too. I just think that at least right now, women in red states, if they have the wherewithal, they can maybe get telehealth person in Connecticut to send them some misoprostol. But if they take that away from them,
Yeah,
right? Sharon?
yeah, women are going to die from this, and they are dying from this. They are.
Yeah.
They are. It's a disgrace, and we ought to hang our heads in shame as a collective society for allowing such people to make these types of decisions, to take away hard-fought rights that shouldn't have to have been fought for in the first place, but should have been
Yes,
evident
but we
from
can't
the
stop
beginning.
there. We have
No,
to
right.
actually do something about it.
Yeah.
We have
can't
to show up. We have to vote these people out. We have to
Right.
stop this.
And once we stop it, we have to keep the pressure on. You
Keep
can't let it
pressure on.
off. Right. All right. So that's that particular segment. We'll be back in a moment. All right, we're back. Shannon, it's
All
your turn.
right. It's my turn. Okay. So I've got another canary in the coal mine kind of situation that I want to talk about. And that's actually, what's happening with the Homeland Security Committee and their Republican vote that is to hold Dr. Fauci in contempt of Congress for taking the fifth during his testimony. And, the committee speaker, which is Rand Paul, said that they're not even bringing it to the full Senate for a vote. He just brought it directly to the Attorney General, and I don't know who, maybe it was the State Department, with their recommendation to hold him in contempt of Congress. And then, they'll make the decision as to whether or not they're going to charge him with a crime. But then, Rand Paul, walked that back, a little bit and was like, well, I'm not ruling out, a full Senate vote, in the future. But I'm like, here we are, according to our laws, you are supposed to have a full Senate vote if you are going to hold someone in contempt of Congress before you can press charges or, do those things. It did say that, there were some caveats that, if the Senate wasn't, in session, that, the vice president could make the decision to, do that. But, I'm sorry, aren't they at work right now? Didn't Mitch McConnell
their
just
version of work. Yeah.
Their version of work. I'm like, Mitch McConnell also got released from the rehab center, and he said he's going to be working.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I'm just, I can't, I cannot wrap my head around this, where it's this Dr. Fauci, who literally stood between America and, a catastrophe, because it could have been a catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
That we're, trying to throw the book at him and make him the scapegoat. When we talked about it the last time, he's not the problem. The problem was your president took the funding out of the places that are supposed to be, watching these things or monitoring these things, studying these things. And now you are going to, besmirch his good name and really drag this man who's retired through the muck. He's
They're
retired.
Also, I think they said they were subpoenaing his phone too for that when he had it. To me, the whole thing is pure madness. We were talking, like I said, we talked about it in the last episode, but it bears repeating, especially in light of that. It's that, how is somebody going to want to go and be an expert today if something were to happen, a pandemic or some other type of thing, and be the scapegoat for someone else's incompetence? And that's really what's kind of happened here, is that now, Fauci's been held out as a scapegoat for the incompetence of another person.
Yeah.
And I have a question, which is that, there's a precedent for this, right? Didn't Pam Bondi take the fifth, and was there somebody else held in contempt of Congress? I feel like there's some other thing that happened in the past year or so that's similar to this. Do you know if I'm completely delusional here?
I don't remember. I don't recall them.
Yeah.
They might have said, because I think, during that hearing when Fauci took the fifth, Rand Paul literally said, there's going to be consequences because you're doing that and your choice.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Pam Bondi did take, she would not testify.
Right. And I think that
I don't think they ever
her in contempt, right?
No, I don't think. Look it up.
I don't think they did because that's their party, that's their person. So I don't think they did. But
yeah.
I was saying the Democrats tried to hold Pam Bondi in contempt when she refused to testify.
Oh yeah, maybe that's the Democrats tried to do that. That's possible. But it was more than just the fifth. I remember her arguing with the Democrats that were on there and just giving evasive or non-answers. But even in the case of whoever it is, if you're pleading the fifth, that you're showed up, you're there, okay, and you have a right to do that. That's part of you. It's called the fifth because it's constitutional. It's the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. It's there. You're supposed to have that right.
Didn't Trump take the fifth? He was in court before he was in his presidency. He was called into court about one of
Yeah.
his nefarious real estate dealings or some shit. And he took the fifth the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Or
the
was it
rules
the
are
fake
different, though.
college? Like,
See, the rules are different. If you're a criminal con artist, you can do whatever you want in the way things go right now. You know, in Trump's MAGA America, the more corrupt and criminal you are, the more you're able to do. And if you try to do things the right way and try to do things for the good of people like Dr. Fauci did, you have your reputation besmirched. You have people, regular citizens, who think you're a genocider or something just because you didn't have all of the answers immediately as the pandemic happened and you were dealing with an incredibly callous moron that was in charge of the country at the time, who was more worried about his poll numbers in the stock market than Americans dying. And that's what he had to balance himself with while trying to find out the best way to handle the pandemic. And for his efforts, not just for the pandemic itself, but all of those 40 years that preceded the pandemic, where he was an instrumental part of our disease Center of Disease Control and our disease prevention. Forget it. Doesn't matter. We're gonna throw you under the bus at an 85-year-old man and ruin your reputation and try to put you in prison. It's ridiculous.
I think Shannon was sort of also like, I think one of the things I think that's interesting that I thought of while Shannon was talking was McCarthyism and how it feels like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly what it feels like. It's exactly what it feels like. You know, how many, when did you become a communist? These types of the framing of the entire issue. I said it last week too. It gets me so upset when somebody who's doing their job as to the best of their abilities is confronted with a buffoon, and the buffoon, to hide his buffoonery, decides to take the good person and destroy their reputation, and all of his little minions that surround him to do the same thing, and anti-vaxxers and all this sort of cabal of nitwits. It's fucking maddening.
yeah. I'm just like, you just kind of like reminded me, like, the Good Samaritan law. Like, is that well, I guess it depends upon like where you are. Like, I guess it's not a national
It's not a national
thing.
law, but yeah.
But yeah, like it's that kind of thing, like where, you step in and you try to do the right thing, but like someone decides that like that's like a political, like, thing. They're going to weaponize whatever it is
What
that you're doing against you.
stand though is the fact that they take this guy, a man who has dedicated himself to public health service, and they treat him like he's a criminal, while they treat people who invaded the Capitol, overthrow the democratic process, and to take shits all over the Capitol building and beat police officers as heroes.
Yeah.
Where the hell is the moral clarity there? It's nowhere. It's nowhere.
Not just that they're being treated as heroes; they were actually pardoned by the president. One of the first things he did,
the very first thing he did.
And Shannon, I think that I remember was one of the things that made Republicans so angry at Fauci, I think, was the fact that Biden preemptively pardoned him before he left office.
Yeah.
Well, he had to, because they would have tried this dumbass shit. You trust this Trump Department of Justice? They tried to put an Olympian in jail for something he didn't even do, in order to satiate the ego of the lunatic in the White House. I mean,
also, one of the things they've done, the Republicans do so well, is they preemptively had a narrative during Biden's thing saying that Biden was weaponizing the Department of Justice against his enemies, which he was not. He actually the other direction. And so now when you say, oh, Trump is weaponizing the Department of Justice against people he doesn't like, people are like, oh, well, that was what Biden did, because the Republicans were able to create this narrative that Biden was doing it, even though he wasn't. And so now when you try and leverage that very valid argument here, because I think that that's one of the things that Shannon is so, why she brought it up is because that's what it feels like to me, the weaponization of the Department of Justice. I think that that's
if Biden was weaponizing the Department of Justice in the same way that Trump is, Trump would have been in jail. He would never be able to run for president. Okay.
Yep.
He had Merrick Garland in there who dragged his feet so long that actual justice was deferred. And instead, Trump is president again for reasons that we'll discuss in a future episode. There are a plethora of them, none of them good. But at the same time, that's where the moral shift that it is flipped on its own head, where the good guys are treated like the bad guys, and the bad guys are treated like the good guys, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And
Yep.
And how do you explain to your kids, or how do you explain to, I mean, how do you explain to anybody, but how do you explain to your kids that, that there's fairness and justice in the world when the shittiest people on the planet keep being rewarded for their terribleness? And that's that's exactly what happened to Fauci. He was a good guy who, and trying to do the right thing, who was being dragged by idiots like Ted Cruz, who is so disliked that everybody in the Senate hates him, even his own people in his own party. Yet, they get away with it. And meanwhile, Donald Trump is literally stealing money from the public in every way he possibly can. And he has an approval rating that's not 0. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Just bizarre. All right. Did I hear a dog? That's okay.
Your dog has something to say about this.
She's got something to say. Bonnie.
Yeah.
Yes.
You should translate.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
All right. So we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we'll have part 3, my little thing. Cool. Okay, and we're back. We're joined by Wonder Woman in this particular segment. So why is Wonder Woman joining us? Well, because my segment is on the American mythology of heroes and superheroes. Now, we have had over the last, say, 15 years or so, a lot of material that came up about superheroes, a lot of superhero movies, Marvel movies, Iron Man and Captain America and Thor and the Avengers and this, that, and the other thing. And then we had DC coming out, and they've had with the Dark Knight trilogy, and then with Superman and blah, 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 blah. And so we've had a very sort of golden age of cinematic version, at least, of superheroes. And I think it speaks to this particular moment in our time, because earlier in this episode, we've talked about bad dudes, we've talked about good dudes, and now we're going to be talking about super dudes. But there are not just super dudes, there's super ladies too. And they get oftentimes overlooked. If you look at, obviously, a lot of comic fandom traditionally has been male, but is not exclusively so. And I think it's less so today than it used to be. But a lot of the content is oriented towards sort of a male ideal. So if you look at characters like Superman or Captain America, you see these, sort of almost Boy Scout idealized versions of an American, as an Aryan might imagine an American to be, a white man with blue eyes and all that sort of stuff, right? And then there's the other side of the superhero, the darker superhero, the superhero with some murkiness
flaws
to them. Yes, some moral ambiguity,
the
like
anti-hero.
Batman, right? Like Batman or the Punisher, or different types. Okay, and we don't have to get into the specifics of the characters. This is more of a general discussion of the role the superhero plays in our culture today. People look at superheroes as an ideal, but if you look past the surface layers of them fighting the bad guy, there's also a complex nature to all of them. A lot of them, Spider-Man, for example, is an awkward teen. Peter Parker, who was kind of friendless and kind of a nerd and kind of ostracized in his school, but he becomes Spider-Man. So he becomes something bigger than himself because of a spider bite. But
I want to back,
go ahead. Yeah.
I want to back us all the way up to the beginnings of the creation of superheroes and stuff like that. It was literally propaganda. It was it was like wartime propaganda to get people to like, get behind their country and feel like that they had hope. And, what was supposed to be like, the ideal like attributes of like a man, like how is a man supposed to save us and those
R-
types of things. And I'm like, and then I give it to like Stanley and like those guys like for continuing like the metaphor, because like comics and those types of things, they're always a metaphor for something else. And
Mhm.
like you see like hero like characters or villains being like their power or their secret identity or whatever it is, it generally relates to what is happening in our society like
Right.
at that time.
Yes. Right.
you know I have to say it because like just staring at Tina, like I'm like, I have to say it. Like I love Wonder Woman, but I'm like,
Mhm.
if you really know like where she came from, like it has to do with like
I thought,
sex positivity and
yes,
Mhm.
bondage and like that couple working through like their marriage.
yeah.
And like
That's right.
she
Yes.
came
That's
she
right.
came out of that.
I
And
forgot
I'm
about
like,
that.
you forgot all about that, but it was about like women's empowerment and like what that was. But then like, other writers got a hold of it and completely like, sexualized her
Mhm.
and like, shifted that dynamic. And I really did like, and I hate to say this, but I loved Gal Gadot's like Wonder
No,
Woman. Like,
Oh,
I
she was
thought
be-
I didn't like the second
no,
movie, but the first one was really good.
first one was
yeah,
amazing.
like
Yeah.
I really enjoyed her portrayal of it. Like I was just like, I'm like, oh, like I really feel like 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 that kind of
Yeah.
that thing.
It,
Like
yeah.
that's but
I felt
you
I felt empowered by her, and I
Mhm.
think that that is actually what men see when they go and watch superhero movies is they feel empowered by these superheroes.
Yeah.
And I've only had 3 movies in my entire life that made me feel that way. One was the first Wonder Woman. One was Black Widow. Did you see that movie? But I love that movie because every single woman in it, it was 90% women kicking ass and
Yeah.
men who were like token men. It was fantastic. And then honestly, the final Star Wars trilogy where Rey became the hero, that was the only. Like, those are 3 instances in my life where a superhero movie has spoken to me.
I
yeah,
think in terms of that, I think I don't know if you've seen Captain Marvel, which has
I got a
been
story
kind of
about that.
criticized, but I thought Captain Marvel was a great movie, or a great superhero
I
movie.
yeah.
Men.
Yeah.
So like I had just had my first or not my first, sorry, my fourth kid. And I, wanted to see Captain Marvel because like I wanted to like, have that lore behind me before I saw like Endgame or whatever. And I literally went to like the opening day, like that 12 o'clock thing. Like I left the baby with Sean and I went by myself and I did not care because like I needed to be in that theater. I needed to see her and I loved it. Like I
Yeah.
was so happy that I was there because like it, it was like seeing my like what myself like on
Yeah.
screen. That's
That's very similar to Black Panther too, because Black Panther was a huge hit. It was a good movie, and it had that same kind of impact for African American viewers because when you would watch the typical superhero movie, it was always someone who was white, pretty much, that was
yeah.
always up on the screen. And here now was a hero who wasn't, and
And
was a
his
great hero.
it wasn't just one person too, it was the
It was
entire
the
It was the
cast.
entire cast.
yeah,
Like
right. Ryan
there was like
Coogler, who made the
one
movie, is
white
a
dude
fantastic
and I'm like and I
director.
love that like I forget who that actor is, but I love him, like the
So
recurring character.
Yeah,
But
it spectacular movie, and that's the kind of thing, as you say, you see yourself in it. So so whether then it depends on the hero, obviously, and I think maybe there's even some nebulousness with that too. You're seeing somebody who's, I'm going to go fight the bad guy. We were talking earlier today about the bad guys are getting away with it, and the good guys are the ones being punished. The bad guys are being treated like the good guy, and the good guys are being treated like the bad guys. So it's like, in this case, like Lex Luthor is the good guy and Superman is the bad guy. And in fact, if you watch the most recent Superman movie, that kind of is a theme that they actually utilize, and it, and it even says, if you look at two of the most prominent superheroes of the last, couple of decades, especially, they both go back much further than that, is Batman and Iron Man. And that's Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark. Both of them are billionaires, but these billionaires decide to go and do something. Now, you might have some issues with how they go about it, but they are looking at society going, things are wrong. I've got to do something right about it. And, it leads to some of these false dichotomies, like Elon Musk is like Tony Stark, which ends up nothing close to like what the character's supposed to be.
No, and I always enjoy Iron Man over Batman because like Tony Stark literally comes out and is like, I am Iron Man.
Yeah.
And then
true.
it's like his public persona then also matches his superhero persona. Whereas like with Bruce Wayne, like you have the Dark Knight, you have this, vigilante, but then like during the day, he's like a playboy party boy. And I'm like, I hate that. Like, because like it's, that.
And one of the things that you're kind of also, both of you have been kind of talking a little bit about is that because white men in particular have so many of these superheroes that come and save the day, that's why white men think that they are saviors, that they're going to come and save the day. Also, it's why they're so comfortable electing white men. I agree that one of the reasons that the United States was able to elect, this is a silly theory, but bear with me, that we were able to elect Obama was that in the years before Obama was president and elected, there were at least a couple of blockbuster movies where a black man played the president in a way that was very complimentary to the president. Like, I can't remember what they are now, but there's like a couple of them.
Well, Deep Impact, I think Morgan Freeman was the president. Yeah.
And so we never had not a single movie where we've had in history where there has been a woman blockbuster movie where a woman president has been sort of like this benevolent leader that we all look up to.
Or like the one that's fighting the terrorists on the plane. Like, give me that. Like, give me the 46-year-old like president of the United States kicking butt with for a bunch of terrorists. Like, we don't have to do the terrorists on the plane. It could be AI terrorists. Like,
hey, the Kill Bill movies, I love those. I've watched those a whole bunch of times, and there's a woman who really kicks ass in that movie, and I think that's wonderful. I think it's a great portrayal. Usually, you don't see that portrayed that way, and even though the character is very, very much a murky character, it's still an empowerment type thing. I'm not going to lie down and take this shit. I'm going to do something about it, and goes there and does what she does. And one of the things that I wanted to also mention about this is, as we kind of see ourselves, regardless, we'll find a hero, a superhero that we see ourselves in, or we say, hey, it would be cool if I could do that. I think that the key is that, it isn't about saving people in that same sense for us to learn something from them. The Greeks came up with the Greek mythology. They created these gods and these characters, and obviously the Odyssey has just come out, so a lot of people are become familiar with it and what that means. And while I do think it's been male centric, and particularly white male centric, and that has its own load of issues, it's also reflective of the fact that during the time these characters were created, a lot of them are half a century or more old. They were created in an older sort of environment, or the sort of cultural environment, and they've translated to now. But I do think if you take characters like the X-Men, which is a very important lesson, because the X-Men are treated, even though they have these special abilities, they're mutants, and they're treated as outcasts, not as heroes. And who are different, who seem to be, regardless of whatever differentiation from a supposed norm that they may be, they're treated badly. They're treated as outcasts. And then there's two schools of thought as to how to approach it. Do you try to work within the system like the X-Men do, or do you take Magneto's
approach
position and go against it? And Magneto in the storyline famously is a survivor of the Holocaust.
Yep.
So he has a lot of resentment and anger towards being treated as an other. And that also works as a reflection of us as a society.
Yeah.
And so I think that we may be looking at these characters as ideals, but I think it's ideals to a certain extent that we should see in ourselves, because I remember around the time of 9/11, there was the comics were coming out at the time. The movies hadn't really been hitting at that point, and they were showing superheroes like Superman and Spider-Man saluting the firefighters that were there at ground zero when everything was happening. And it shows that heroes, while they are fictional, larger than life, whether it's Superman or Captain America or Odysseus, that in real life, people can show that side of themselves. People can have that within themselves and act as real life inspirations.
It's like Rogers. It's like Mr. Rogers' quote, and you mentioned reminded me that. And it's like whenever something bad happens and you feel bad, look to the people who are running to help. That
Yes.
Got it when you said that.
Yes, and that's we all have a capacity to do crappy things if we choose to. We all have a capacity to do great things if we choose to. And in the superhero sort of story, you have superheroes and you have supervillains. And oftentimes those villains don't have to be villains, but they choose to be villains. And the heroes could choose to be villains, but they choose to be heroes. So we all have that same choice, not necessarily with superpowers or, I can't fly unless it's in an airline or an airplane, an airliner or whatever. And I can't lift a boulder over my head, but I can try to be the best person I can be, as we all can. And each of us can be our version of Wonder Woman or Odysseus or whomever, rather than being the Joker or Lex Luthor or whomever. So I think we can kind of end it on that, unless somebody has one more thing you want to say.
I have one more.
Sure.
So if you could be any superhero, not like who's your favorite, but if you could be any superhero, which one would I have to think?
Okay. So if I could be any superhero, like I've snapped my fingers and I'm this person, okay, Shannon, I'd be Superman. I wouldn't be Superman.
Okay.
Yeah. My favorite's Batman, but I'd be Superman.
Yeah, you have
those powers.
Yeah.
Make
Oh
you
my,
feel that way.
Come on. Yeah. I can go fly up and breathe in space in a vacuum. I'm there, I can, I would do that. Shoot lasers out of my eyes. Come on. That's pretty cool.
Jen,
what about you guys?
Oh, so God,
I'll go next. Second,
you
think
go
about
next.
it, and you can finish it. Because I will say it's Rey from the final Star Wars, and I'll tell you.
Okay.
It's a very simple reason. When I was a little girl watching Star Wars, not the first trilogy, which is episodes 4, 5, and 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember being a little girl, and I loved Luke and I loved Leia, and I just wish that, like Luke, I really I wanted to identify with him, but I really wish it was Leia's story and not Luke's. And like the fact that she didn't like it, to me, Leia should have been Luke. And so Rey was the closest I ever got to that in my life. And like literally Rey grabbed that, lightsaber in A Force Awakens. I literally cried. So yeah, I'd be Rey.
All right. So I guess I would be Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Or I would be the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's some power.
That is some power.
That is some power, and that is some
being
badass.
An Omega level mutant, yes.
Yes.
let's do that.
Yeah. I think both of them could, in a fight, they both could beat Superman pretty
Oh, yeah.
easily, you know, because Superman still needs the sun. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They don't need no damn sun. They could do it anywhere, you know? And of course, Ray, I mean, she's got the force. You know, that's pretty damn good. That's pretty damn good. So, all right. So, anyway, so that's it for this week. And we'll see you all next week on another edition of The Revolutionary.